Okay, welcome back. This is 2.2.1 lecture, and we're looking at ancient Greece. And here we are going to be looking at some of the first city-states to pop up on Greece, on the mainland. And let's go ahead and get this rolling. So, just a couple things. Remember to write things down in blue, and also if you have any questions, you can always jot them down in the margins and ask me later. Um, and if I talk too fast, remember you can always pause it or rewind and watch it again at your own pace or whatever. So when we're done with 2.2, you're going to probably put the computer away and then come see me for an exit ticket. And I'm going to combine 2.1 and 2.2. Okay? All right. So Mycenae is one of the first major city centers that pop up in Greece, and you can see the light pink is where they're all going to expand to. And the other little red dots are just little settlements that archaeologists have found where they have like different types of maybe found artifacts or dwellings or whatnot from this time period. When I'm talking time period, I'm looking at 1450 or 1400 to 1100 BC, which, if you're trying to get an idea, um, the Bronze Age itself was between these dates, 1750 to 1420. And if you're trying to kind of relate this to Egypt, which we just finished last week, there's a little bit of overlap there. So just as the Egypt New Kingdom is starting to fade out, the Greeks in Mycenae, and you can see this is kind of a layout of the city, are starting to come into their own. All right, a couple things that you want to jot down. Again, the time 1450 or 1400. It keeps in 1450. 1400 BC, city-states start popping up, and there will be others, as you saw on that map previous, but Mycenae is kind of the first big one. What kind of makes Greece interesting is the mountains. The rugged terrain isolates the Greeks apart from each other, so they're more often than not they don't have a lot of contact with each other. They might every now and then bump into each other, like for trade. There were also what's called the Olympics, which we'll talk about later, where they played every 4 years, and each city-state sent their athletes. But for the most part, a lot of these cities were what we call independent, self-reliant, didn't need anything from anybody. You know, each city-state was kind of expected to be able to grow its own food and provide its people with its own security and whatnot. So we see a very decentralized rule of Greece. Each little city-state is its own little mini kingdom, so to speak. And Mycenae is one of the first ones that actually kind of rises above that and then forms a league. This is a giant vault. If you go inside, it's like a dome inside. It's one of the first underground domes ever built, and it's down the road from Mycenae. And this where I'm pointing with this pointer, you're going to see in the next picture is a picture I took when we took students over. Miss Boris and I, we went over in 2009, and we took some students, and we had a chance to go and climb underneath the gate here. It's called the Lion's Gate, so you want to jot that down because it's blue there. And the Lion's Gate had two lions that were flanking either side of it. And again, if you're looking where that is, that's the main gate to get inside the city. And it was supported by these massive, big, almost reminds you of Stonehenge, if you've ever seen Stonehenge. We call these giant pillars, we call them, well, first of all, I'm pointing out these are the two lions. If you're like saying, well, where's lions, Mr. Farrell? The lions' heads are gone. We don't know who broke off the heads, but they were gone long ago. So back to these pillars. These pillars, they're called monoliths, large rock formations that are often used to hold up like weight bearing, sometimes used in temples, sometimes used in street building. But notice the brickwork. There was no cement, there was no concrete. They would just chisel out rocks and lay them on top of each other, and so that's kind of the Lion's Gate. And these monoliths are what supported the gate, and then the lions were the symbol, two lions of it. And just to show you other monoliths, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say Stonehenge, we see these throughout the Bronze Age pop up and before too, where they have these giant pillars. This one here is on the island of Malta, which is south of Italy. We also see in Newgrange, which is in Ireland, or the dolmens here, we can see again, like this was a giant table where like Celts would perform their sacrifices or religious rites or whatever. So anyway, when we're talking about these monoliths, you understand it's a term that we throw around a lot whenever we're talking about ancient peoples. And that's a better close-up shot of the two lions, and you can see their heads are gone. But that was the Lion's Gate, as it was called. It was like the famous crest to go in and out of. And this is kind of what an artist's rendition it would have looked like when the walls were standing to Mycenae back around 1400 BC. All right, we'll leave Mycenae for a minute. We'll come back to it later. This is just showing you Santorini, the rugged coastline of Greece. And again, a lot of times places, Santorini actually was an island. But Greece itself is a very beautiful country. It has a climate like Florida. It's warm most of the year around. Their winters, maybe it dips into like 50, 60, 70 degrees, but it's always like, like I said, it's kind of what we call a Mediterranean climate, and that makes for a very nice place to live. All right, and I'm going to stop it there because you've already seen this part. So, all right, so go grab an exit ticket, and that'll do for today.